With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown.
And I am Yolana Weeks.
Our top stories.
Fire Substation Officer Pablo Gomes discusses the fire prevention campaign, a crucial step toward safety. Steel pan groups to compete for musical supremacy during Nevis Culturama 51.
From farm to table, cultivating food security and health in St. Kitts and Nevis. Police investigating shooting in Godwin Gut area. Bradley Marsham injured. Road carnage near Monkey Farm. Multiple injuries reported. American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago's Tech Hub Island Summit highlights frequent and costly cyber attacks. Guyana Attorney General says tweets from U.S. Congress representatives must be taken seriously. Internationally, Gaza's nutrition crisis grows as families rely on dangerous, inadequate food aid.
Now, the details.
The success of a fire prevention campaign lies in its ability to foster long-term behavioral change. Fire Substation Officer Pablo Gomes of the St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services explained that when people become more aware of fire risks, they are more likely to take proactive steps to safeguard their homes, workplaces, and communities. Hence the reason for the fire department's robust fire prevention campaign.
We keep mentioning fire prevention, and throughout the world and throughout the Caribbean, one of the things that help minimize the lot of fires and stuff is fire prevention. Actually teaching people what to do, how to do it, in the event of a fire. This goes a long way because it's no more where that we are, like, back in the day, persons used to say that we waiting for fires. We are not waiting for fires anymore. Those are the days that are gone. We are going out and doing prevention, and prevention is key.
It is far easier and more cost-effective to prevent a fire than to deal with its aftermath. Fires can cause immense damage, loss of life, and significant financial losses, Mr. Gomes explained on the June 24 edition of Fire Talk.
Some person may say, but y'all ain't get any fires. I don't like fires. One, fire destroys lives and property, right? So if you spend your whole life building your property and then you actually lose it in a couple of hours, that is very tragic to someone who has spent
disturbing
their life
too.
building their property and stuff like that.
For the first half of 2025, residential fire statistics showed a positive trend with no reports of home destruction due to fires. Mr. Gomes views the statistics as encouraging, suggesting that fire safety practices are having a tangible impact on minimizing fire-related risks in communities across the Federation.
So going out and actually doing prevention is the key, because I think for this year, for past year, we have had just maybe 4 to 5 house fires, and these whole fires were not fires where persons occupy these buildings. These were abandoned buildings. So that in itself tells us that we are not having fires that persons are living and then they are losing everything, So it's just maybe somebody might just go into an abandoned building and maybe be smoking and stuff like that, and then cause a fire. So the prevention is really doing its work.
Firefighters play a crucial role in educating the public about fire prevention. One of the most effective ways the St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services achieve this is by visiting schools, interacting directly with children, and instilling lifelong habits of fire awareness and safety.
I have to commend those persons who came before me in terms of doing this fire prevention.
That's the groundwork.
It's really getting out there to persons now that fire is not just about sitting down and waiting anymore. Right? We're going out and actually doing our work, talking to people, talking to schools. This year we had our year of activities where we went out to the schools. We are going to start again after school opens again in September to go to some of the private schools, because that in itself goes a long way, where that you're teaching the children and actually they are going back to their parents and and educating them as well too, because you can learn from the smallest child.
WINN FM was provided an opportunity to witness fire prevention engagements at a few schools in the Federation. The lessons empowered students to recognize dangerous situations and respond effectively. The sessions typically involved hands-on demonstrations, safety drills, and clear explanations of how to handle different fire-related situations. Students were taught the importance of smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, and emergency exits to ensure they understand the significance of these tools in keeping their homes, schools, and families safe. Children were also taught how to stop, drop, and roll if their clothes catch fire, reminded of the importance of never playing with fire or matches, and the need to always have a designated meeting spot in case of an emergency. Meanwhile, the wider community also benefit from proactive fire safety measures such as fire drills, community outreach initiatives, public service announcements, and public education campaigns. Particularly, there have been continuous pleas by fire officials for households and businesses to implement comprehensive fire prevention plans, including regular inspections, training for staff and household members, the use of portable fire extinguishers, smoke detectors and alarms, and strict adherence to safety protocols. This summer, the National Bank Group Steel Pan Contest is expected to showcase an incredible array of talent as musicians from Nevis gather in celebration of Caribbean culture and music. The event is not only a competition, but a cultural gathering that highlights the enduring legacy of the steel pan art form and the great maestro Basil Manners and others who have paved the way. Held in Nevis for the Nevis Culturama Festival, the steel pan contest has grown in stature and importance over the past few years. Musicians ranging from seasoned players to emerging young talents will have the chance to demonstrate their skills on the iconic instrument on Monday, July 28 at the Nidaxa Cultural Complex at 8 p.m. The competing bands include Poinciana Steel Orchestra, Uali Rhythms, Gifted Youth Steel Orchestra, and the Nevis Community Development Steel Orchestra. Guest steel bands from St. Kitts will also be performing, including Sugar City, Positive, Rhythms, Smooth Vibes, Pan Paradise Steel Orchestra, and the Federation's top pan group EBJ Harmonics. The steel pan is known for its melodic, percussive sound and its ability to evoke powerful emotions through music. The contending groups are expected to push the boundaries of traditional steel pan music, incorporating modern elements while staying rooted in the genre's history. They are tasked with performing a set piece that a panel of renowned music enthusiasts will judge. In recent years, there has been a significant increase in the number of youth-focused programs aimed at nurturing the next generation of steel pan players, offering them a platform to compete and grow. Schools and community groups have been working tirelessly to develop the skills of the youth, particularly under the tutelage of Mr. Llewellyn Jr. Paris, Mr. Gavin Patterson, and Shavini Maynard and others. The Steel Pan Contest has become a key part of Nevis Culturama, the Caribbean's greatest summer lime, attracting both local music lovers and tourists. The organizers anticipate that the National Bank Group Steel Pan Contest will reaffirm the steel pan's relevance on the global music scene.
Amidst escalating food prices and persistent supply chain disruptions, the critical issue of food security takes center stage. The Twin Island Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, like many small island developing states, face significant vulnerabilities to external shocks and natural disasters, necessitating a robust, localized response. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, has been keenly focused on this, with initiatives such as its Food Import Bill Tracker aiming to reduce regional food import dependency by 25% of 2019's value by 2025, targeting a reduction to EC $1.17 billion or less. This ambitious goal highlights the urgent need for increased domestic agricultural output and enhanced resilience within the agri-food system. On the July 2nd, 2025 episode of ECCB Connects, Daniel Atherton, owner of Nevis Hydro Gardens, provided a compelling perspective on sustainable agriculture and its indispensable role in addressing the Federation's food security concerns. Speaking with Shanna Derrick, Senior Technical Assistant of the Corporate Relations Department at the ECCB, Atherton highlighted the profound connection between farming and survival. When asked about the farm-to-table concept, Atherton explained,
Farm-to-table, it has now been glamorized in the agro-tourism sector. But I think this is something that it's not new to our ancestors and the people before us, the farmers, the last 100 years, because that's what they did. I mean, farm-to-table, it goes to two critical things. One, it goes to knowing what you are growing and knowing what you're eating. And when it's like that, What you tend to find happening is a situation where, unlike something that comes from outside where there's intermediation, where there's a markup in terms of the price of the item, or there's some added value in terms of some processing or putting in some glamorous plastic or some other packaging, that's what that difference is. But when you, as a farmer who go out there and use cultural practices and use, time-tested cycles of nature, it is really, really an enjoyable experience to know that from seed to the stomach, you had some degree of control, you had some degree of management, you have some degree of understanding, and you're learning how to become, more fortified with nutritious food from your own efforts.
Nevis Hydro Gardens, a 5-acre multi-purpose farm, exemplifies Atherton's commitment to sustainable practices. His operation is a profitable prototype and knowledge and learning operation integrating 4 mutually beneficial components: biodiversity preservation through fruit tree crops, water harvesting and conservation, sustainable land use practices, and the promotion of agrotourism. The farm boasts over 120 different species of crops, is entirely solar-powered with a 10 kilowatt-hour capacity, and utilizes extensive water harvesting systems that store thousands of gallons of rainwater for use during dry spells. Atherton is a pioneer in hydroponics in Nevis, a method of growing plants with nutrients and water without soil. The farm also employs traditional ground cover, drip irrigation, open field, vegetable high density, and block farming techniques. Atherton detailed his objectives.
I have 2 objectives. I have one, a demonstration objective, where I hope that other individuals who are around me, who are farmers, who are farming intent, or who are already doing farming, they'll be able to see the methods that I use that enable them to come and do the same thing so they can have this nourishing food. The other aspect of it is to see the results that people talk about in real time and for your own personal benefit. So I think that those are the critical reasons why I would say that I do the farm to table.
He further highlighted the diversity of his crops.
I actually have over 120 different species of crops, and I have crops that fall into category of herbs for teas. So I have lemongrass, tarragon, basil, mint, and the like. Then I have seasonings, chives, leek, those sorts of things. Then I have fruits. I have wax apple, I have sugar apple, I have soursop, I have guavas, I have carambola, just to name a few. Then I also have other fruit trees like mangoes and grapefruit and sour orange. But I also have field fruits such as banana, plantain, and then I have root crops like cassava, and tanya, because you want to be able to have a whole spectrum of items. Because another thing about farm to table, you have to make sure that you have streams of income coming in at different times. Because some crops are 6 weeks, like beans. Some crops are 12 weeks, like tomatoes. Some start, that is when they start. And so when you have those sorts of things, you want to make sure that you can, when one stops bringing you income and you transition into the next crop of that particular species, that you can have a fairly good job of having that continuity, because you get the cash flow if you are doing it for sale, or you have the regularity of that in the meal if you're taking it to a place where they want to serve this product consistently.
Atherton emphasized that farming is far from a simple endeavor, encompassing 7 major branches including crop, livestock, forestry, and diagnostic agriculture, such as soil and water analysis. He stressed the need for public education and public awareness regarding agriculture's fundamental role, calling it germane. It is essential to our very existence, it's existential. The Federation's heavy reliance on food imports, a regional characteristic, makes it susceptible to global price fluctuations and external shocks. The St. Kitts and Nevis Food and Nutrition Security Policy, recognizing these challenges, aims to reduce dependence on food imports and promote local production to meet dietary needs. For farmers to thrive and contribute effectively to national food security, Atherton identified critical support systems. First and foremost is the security of tenure, the assurance that farmers will have access to land for an extended period, which encourages investment. Without this comfort, long-term investments in agricultural ventures are unlikely to be made. Second, farmers require a capable extension service from the government, which provides training in new methods and demonstrates successful practices. Atherton underscored the importance of integrating good farming practices with the success of farming enterprises to ensure the consistency and affordability of food. The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, also emphasizes the importance of promoting sustainable food production through climate-resilient agriculture, investing in agricultural public goods, and adopting climate-smart technologies. When asked about targeting school-aged children, Atherton stated,
"In this particular farm-to-table model, I am trying to have a sustainable farm model where I produce a lot of from the solar energy, a lot of the electricity that I use, and that I do a lot of water harvesting so as to be able to get that rainwater, which is soft water, and which does not have in all the minerals and chlorine and fluorides that you have in the water that come for the government system." So the person I'm targeting that anyone who wants to look at any one aspect of my operation, and let's say if they want to go into orchard crops, take what I have to offer in my demonstration effect from the orchards. If you want to do sustainable land management, look at how I manage the slopes of my land, the terracing, the contours, look at the ground cover. If you want to look at the technological aspects of my operation, you come and look at the hydroponics and see how there's great water efficiency because we do not have much waste. So you have a circular movement of water, so that you can enhance production and maintain it over time. If you want to take this concept to children who are in school, you have to make it agile. You must make sure that one, it blends with what is current with the generation. So for example, you must make sure that it's apps based. You must make sure that people are using coding, and they can use the freedoms that they have to make life, to maintain and operate the operation, separately. Like I said, if you're doing orchard, if you're doing hydroponics, which is a circular flow, then you can put up tensiometers, you can put up meters, you can put up, charts so that you can watch changes in growth, changes in productivity, but it has to be very attractive to students. And when it's attractive to students, it means that they find it fun. They look forward to coming out, to setting up themselves at one place so as to be able to hold a territory to say, well, this is where I put in my greatest contribution. And I have seen the result because I've seen the tree, I have seen the vegetation, I have seen the crop, manifest over the period of time, whether it is an SBA or whether it is just a learning operation. You can actually see results in the specified period of time that is satisfactory to you and encourage you to go to the next step.
Atherton advocated for widespread participation in food production, urging ordinary citizens to engage in backyard gardening. He noted that such efforts contribute to personal pride, improved nutrition and affordability, potentially saving 20 to 30% on grocery bills by growing herbs, chives, and green seasonings. He added that any surplus food from backyard efforts could lead to value-added activities such as processing or making smoothies, creating employment, and providing natural, fresh products free from preservatives, which aids in the broader regional efforts to strengthen sustainable value chains through value addition and diversification. Derek pressed Atherton on the long-term impacts of farm-to-table on food security and health.
Farm-to-table concept can address both things. It would be able to address food security in that if a lot of persons are producing, and they can control or schedule the production system, what you're likely to find is that there'll be adequacy of critical food types for the people's eating styles and preferences. In terms of the nutritional side, I mean, that is a great impactor because we have a situation where we have significant increases in non-communicable diseases. And if we are to practice the farm to table and get our people in eating more tropical fruits, then we would be able to manage the input into the diet or the consumption, I would say, of the people from a very early age. And that's why I think that it's worth every bit of my time. Every day I wake up, I redouble my efforts to make sure that I can be one of those people in the vanguard to ensure this food security, this nutrition enhancement, this farm to table approach is really practiced and become a part of our doings, one farm at a time.
How can people interested get involved?
The government has agriculture departments, and then I do know there are other initiatives like Farm Hers, which is Helen operation. I think that is another channel. You have collectives like farmers associations, farmers cooperatives. I think that the collective is very important because with the collective, you spread the risk and you increase the reward. And also your cost is also borne with other people.
Atherton hopes the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and the wider Caribbean come to truly understand the value of locally produced foods without being forced to buy local because of increased food prices on imported goods.
Well, I would hope that the audience do not have to be given shock treatment. They don't have to be given shock treatment when they go on the shelves and find the prices that they're paying for an imported item that they have no knowledge of where it was produced and how it was produced, and realize that they should have bought something local and they would have encouraged the farmer. The other area that I would hope that they take away is the fact that freshness has a price. It's best if it's local, it's best if it's fresh, it's best if I know what I put into it. I just hope that they understand that if you start understanding the principle that if every man his step would sweep, the city would be clean. So if every person would contribute a little bit to national nutrition, we'll be a well-nourished country.
The path to food security, as articulated by Daniel Atherton, is a multifaceted journey that requires government support, technological adoption, and a collective commitment from every citizen to cultivate a more resilient future. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force confirmed that Bradley Marsham of Godwin Gut was shot and injured in Godwin's Gut on the morning of July 2nd, 2025. Marsham is currently warded in stable condition at the Joseph and France General Hospital. Investigations into the matter are ongoing. More information will be provided as it becomes available. A multi-vehicle collision along the Island Maid Road in Bordeaux near the Monkey Farm has resulted in multiple injuries and significant damage to vehicles. The incident, which occurred on July 2nd, 2025 between 7:30 a.m. and 8 a.m., involved a motor omnibus H577 and two motorcars PA 1115 and PA 4086. Preliminary police investigations reveal a sequence of events that led to the tragic accident. The omnibus 577 was reportedly traveling toward the Monkey Farm, following closely behind PA 1115. Simultaneously, PA 4086 was approached from the opposite direction. The situation escalated when 1115 came to a stop behind another passenger bus. It was at this juncture that the bus 577 attempted to overtake both stationary vehicles. During this maneuver, 577 tragically collided with the oncoming PA 4086. The impact also caused 577 to strike PA 1115. As a direct consequence of the collision, PA 4086 veered off the roadway, striking a Parks and Beaches worker who was in the vicinity. The St. Kitts and Nevis Fire and Rescue Services were promptly called to the location to extricate the driver of PA 4086, who was trapped within the vehicle. Following extraction, the driver of PA 4086, along with 4 passengers from the bus 577, were transported to the Joseph and Franz General Hospital for urgent medical attention. The Parks and Beaches worker who sustained injuries as a bystander was taken to the Mary Charles Hospital. All 3 vehicles involved in the collision sustained damage. As at the latest reports, the driver of PA 4086 remains in the hospital. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force has confirmed the investigation into the significant traffic accident is ongoing. This incident follows a recent fatal accident in Keys Village, highlighting ongoing concerns about road safety in the Federation.
In regional news,
American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago's Tech Hub Island Summit highlights frequent and costly cyber attacks. Triple T Live Online reports.
Cyber attacks are incredibly frequent, with incidents occurring approximately every 39 seconds. This translates to more than 2,000 attacks per day. One of the key talks at Wednesday's Tech Hub Islands Summit, hosted by the American Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago, addressed the ongoing threat of cybercrime. Here's Terry Ann Brown Campbell with the details.
Addressing the American Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago's Tech Hub Island Summit, Director of Cybersecurity at Simtai Consulting, Rory Ebanks, focused on cyber warfare and the new digital battlefield.
So let's think about the monetary value in terms of a breach. On average, it costs about 4.88 million US dollars. This is global statistics whenever a company suffers a breach. That's a 10% increase compared to 2023.
The cybersecurity expert noted that cyber criminals are evolving at an alarming pace as they weaponize artificial intelligence and deep fake technology.
On average, it takes about a year for an organization to identify that they have been breached through a compromised credential. Imagine a hacker gaining access to your username and password. Do you have any controls in place to identify that?
The summit also featured a technology exhibition. Instructor at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, David Edwards, said the academic institution is making sure no one is left behind in this new digital era.
So what we want to do is we actually want to educate. We want to have this lab where persons from SMEs, micro enterprises, small enterprises could come and they could actually learn how to use some of these tools, right? Even open source tools. So the cost that would impact their business wouldn't be that much if they're using open source tools. So AI has become very easy to implement, actually. So we want to actually show these persons how easy it is to implement in their business.
AmCham TT's annual Tech Hub Island Summit began on Tuesday and ended on Wednesday. Terry Ann Brown Campbell, TTT News.
A recent report indicates that 1.7 billion passwords have been compromised and are being actively marketed on the dark web by cyber criminals. At the American Chamber of Trinidad and Tobago's Tech Hub Islands Summit on Wednesday, one director of cybersecurity shared statistics on cyber attacks and the methods hackers use to perpetuate their attacks.
A lot of times we see that hacks are happening, data breach are happening, and these incidents are not being reported. But we saw 118 incidents being reported. That's a significant amount, right? How many of that was in the news? Even the ransomware, we saw 9 ransomware in 2024. Maybe we saw 1 news bulletin about it.
Mr. Rory Ebanks said hackers are no longer trying to break down firewalls and use other complex hacking methods. He agreed they are choosing to purchase information on the dark web.
They literally can go on the dark web and start seeing information that has vulnerabilities. In this case, for Trinidad, we saw 106,000 assets, meaning computers, servers, cameras listed on the dark web, and 23,000 vulnerabilities. You may ask, what are some of these assets?
Guyana Attorney General says tweets from U.S. Congress representatives must be taken seriously. News source Guyana has that story.
Attorney General Anil Nandlal believes the recent tweets released by 2 U.S. congressional representatives about presidential hopeful and sanctioned businessman Azruddin Mohammed must be taken seriously. Documents filed by a U.S. lobbying firm with the U.S. Justice Department revealed an email documenting draft tweets about Mohammed and his presidential run, linking him to the Venezuelan government. That lobbying firm was hired by the government of Guyana at a cost of $50,000 per month. One U.S. congressman released one of those draft tweets on his social media page, just days after his office received an email from the lobbying firm with the tweets. The Guyana government contracted the lobbying firm. On his weekly Issues in a News program, the Attorney General Anil Nandlal said he believes the tweets form part of a broader policy of the United States.
The point I want to make is that you can't hand an American congressman a piece of paper and say tweet this and he will tweet it. It must be something that is part of their policy, that they are aware of, that they have investigated. And that is their position, because the platform of this social media platform has now become an acceptable form of them disseminating important policy, important positions that they adopt on important matters.
Mr. Nandlal argued that congressional officials must be in possession of information before releasing statements, explaining that it will be difficult to contend that U.S. Congress officials can be easily persuaded.
That when an American congressman or woman tweets, make a tweet, they don't parrot a position. They're not rubber stamp. They express a policy position. They make important disclosures via this media platform.
Based on the filings of that lobbying firm, it was sharing the draft tweets on behalf of the government of Guyana, which is its contracted client.
We now bring you these international reports.
The people of Gaza have been through relentless bombardment and starvation. Palestinian families have had to endure months without adequate food or medicine.
And now, what little aid is trickling in is barely enough.
My husband is forced to go to the American distribution centers and walk for long hours every time to get something for us and the children to eat. What he brings is too little. The journey to get food from these distribution centers is very dangerous.
Mohammed is one of the Palestinians forced to make daily trips to the controversial Israeli and US-backed GHF sites, where hundreds of Palestinians have been killed trying to get food. On some days, he's lucky enough to get a food parcel without having to reach the sites. But that is usually through someone else's misfortune.
I couldn't get close enough to the tables where the food parcels are kept. I took these items from someone who was injured and left on the ground to bleed. If I don't do it, there is a high chance that my family and I are not going to eat.
Another challenge many families face is preparing the food. There is a shortage of water and cooking gas across the Gaza Strip. Amal says the food her husband brings back is barely enough to survive on.
My children are not eating enough, and I worry from the spread of malnutrition. I can tell they are not eating well. They are not eating enough because they don't have the energy to play like they used to. They get tired easily when they walk in the street. If we have a loaf of bread, I try to divide it into small pieces so it's enough for them. They live on 2 loaves of bread if we are lucky.
GHF has defended its distribution system, saying the boxes are meant to feed 5 people over 3 days. It claims to have delivered more than 50 million meals. But experts warn the parcels are grossly inadequate and will do nothing to address the starvation that has gripped Gaza.
In a place where every calorie counts, food parcels distributed by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundations are not only insufficient, but they are dangerously lacking in nutrition. Families receiving aid are left with more than little basic of carbs and canned items, with no fresh produce, protein or baby formula to support health, especially for children. Hani Mahmoud, Al Jazeera from Gaza City, Palestine.
A towering shroud of smoke billowing over the village of Ferma in Crete. Holidaymakers are bussed away from the site. Firefighters battling the blaze that has already burned through forests and olive groves as gale force winds continue to stoke the flames. About 230 firefighters have been deployed along with dozens of fire engines and helicopters to contain the wildfire that broke out near the town of Yerapetra. Meanwhile, further southeast, in Turkey, the fires that have been burning for the past few days in Izmir province continue to spread, cutting off highways as they reached homes. Already some 50,000 people have been temporarily displaced. This would seem to be the new normal as summers in the Mediterranean become hotter, drier, the land more susceptible to such infernos. From the east, this is the country's hottest June on record, with strong winds making fires more violent and all the more difficult to contain. A disaster for farmers who've seen their land turn to ashes. And for the tourism sector in the Mediterranean, which provides a significant portion of revenue for countries in the region. A physical and economic risk none wanted to see worsen as temperatures increase. Sonia Gallego, Al Jazeera.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were:
Fire Substation Officer Pablo Gomes discusses the fire prevention campaign, a crucial step toward safety. Steel pan groups to compete for musical supremacy during Nevis Culturama 51.
From farm to table, cultivating food security and health in St. Kitts and Nevis. Police investigating shooting in Godwin Gut area. Bradley Marsham injured. Road carnage near Monkey Farm. Multiple injuries reported. American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago's Tech Hub Island Summit highlights frequent and costly cyber attacks. Guyana Attorney General says tweets from U.S. Congress representatives must be taken seriously. Internationally, Gaza's nutrition crisis grows as families rely on dangerous, inadequate food aid.
Thank you for listening.